The number one disease that people are suffering from today is heart disease. Some form of cardiac arrest or heart failure or heart attacks or something is a reason why people are suffering. And the doctors seem to have no answer. No answer. The rates are just, it's just so high. And with all this science and technology, it should be so low. But there is a place that's applying good information and knowledge and wisdom to healing people that are high risk for heart disease or even those that are suffering from it. And that's the Hippocrates Health Institute in West Palm Beach, Florida. This is the third part in a series of the four most popular diseases that are going on today. In the first two parts, we covered ulcerative colitis and Crohn's disease, also known as inflammatory bowel disease. In the second part, we spoke about cancer. And today we're speaking about heart disease with our guest, Brian Clement from the Hippocrates Health Institute. We're going to hear from him. Put your comments and questions below. And if you want to learn more about Hippocrates, my email's below. Please contact me and I'll tell you all you need to know about this program. Thank you, everybody. And here's Brian Clement talking about heart disease. So now we're going to look at the fourth most common popular disease today that people are suffering from. And these are in no particular order, but you'll have tremendous amount of success if you do this the Hippocrates lifestyle way, and that is heart disease.
Oh, yeah.
Heart disease. So such a connection between what we're eating and heart disease.
Oh, it's everything. It's everything.
So, but it's not just simply go to a raw food diet and you'll get better, because a lot of the ways the raw food diets are being, and even the plant-based diets are being promoted, they're not necessarily making the problem better. They're just maybe playing around with it a little. Yeah. So tell us about the raw food, living food lifestyle. And there is a difference between living food and raw food, folks. It's a very important difference. Tell us about the living foods lifestyle here at Hippocrates and how it helps people with potential heart disease or heart issues.
Okay, well, let's start by saying that cardiovascular disease in the developed world is the number one killer. The only country that the number one killer is cancer is Canada, because of all the mining they do there. So in their air, their water environment, they have a lot of unfortunate metals and chemicals.
And Canada oil started there too, canola oil.
Exactly. So now we go back to what it is. So about 3, maybe 4%, if I'm generous, of people have an actual disease. They have a valve disorder that, thank goodness, modern medicine corrects today. They have a wonderful thing. For vegans, this doesn't sound great, but they actually take the valve out of a cow in a medical doctor's office in 6 hours. You don't even have to go to a hospital. They replace the valve, and almost everyone the next day is back to normal life. So that's something that can be corrected. But now we're going to talk about 96, maybe 97%. It's eating garbage, it's having stress and negative thought, and it's lack of movement and exercise. I'll repeat it so you don't miss it. The theme runs through all of these disorders. Eating garbage food, it's non-food you're eating. Number 2, negative stress and thought, which bring cortisol levels up. And number 3, lack of movement and exercise. Data shows that throughout the world, only 5% of the population exercise adequately. So you know that. So many of you that think you're exercising well and doing more than the average person, you're still not doing what you need to do. So now we go back to different diets. So it's the Western or American diet, as we call it, that's the biggest culprit in this, because it's high amounts of vein and capillary clogging animal fats. It's massive amounts of sugar that let your body, the human body is an animal body that, by the way, when you take sugar in of any type, creates cholesterol. That's why on the campus, vegans that come here with high cholesterol, it's because they're eating junk food or high sugar fruit diets. The next thing I will say to you is that there's a wild difference between a plant-based cooked diet that's a junk food, a plant-based cooked diet that's just cooked, and a raw diet that is just somebody picked a vegetable maybe thousands of miles away that you're eating, and then a living food diet. So obviously we went from the lowest, the cesspool, right to the highest, the pinnacle type. So what are the components within a living food diet, and what's the difference between a raw diet and a living diet? When you're having a living diet, at the time that you're actually consuming it, it's growing. So there is a shocking difference between, by the way, eating broccoli, which is tremendously healthy for you, by the raw broccoli. We know the benefits of it. Everything from ulcers, it helps, to cancers, it helps, to brain, it helps, even viruses, it helps to reverse. But when I take the broccoli sprout and germinate it, it now becomes 60% more digestible. It becomes about 8 times more nutritious, including the phytochemicals that reverse disease in it. And most importantly, it is really inexpensive, and anywhere in the world you can afford to do this. Because every 1 pound of seeds produces 10 pounds of food. Most nutritious food, highest medicine food ever discovered in the history of modern medicine. So now, when we have the 4 things that I discovered over my career, my professional career: hormones, oxygen, phytochemicals, and enzymes in the food, and we'll break each of these down. They dissolve cardiovascular disease, unlike a raw diet that doesn't have the 8 times more nutrition, the 60 times more digestibility, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Why? Because you're germinating, sprouting, you're breaking down the proteins to usable amino acids. Now the body doesn't have to do that. Paul just alluded to that about 8 minutes ago. He said, remember, your body doesn't have to spend the energy to break these things out. It takes the carbohydrates, breaks them to simple sugars, which one takes 4 hours of protein. Carbohydrates take 2 to 2.5 hours, and takes the fats and makes them usable essential fatty acids. Now, hormones, what are they? So in one of the many books I've written, I actually explain hormones as the language in the human body. So if we cook a food, the same thing I'm telling you to eat raw, if you cook it, the hormones are gone. So now the communication between one cell and the other cell isn't working. The oxygen, way back in 1917, more than a century ago, a German scientist won the Nobel Prize when he said, nutrients will not digest into the human cell, absorb into the human cell, unless they have oxygen molecules present with them. Once you cook a food, the oxygen leaves. I always joke and say, when you're cooking a food, breathe heavy over the pot. That's the best part of it. And that's important. The next one is magic. This is really proof of God, as I say. Hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of millions of years ago, when the planet started, billions of years ago it started, but hundreds of millions when plants showed up, they actually have in them medicines called phytochemicals that heal our species that have only shown up recently. We've only been around a short time. So now you imagine the genius of the universe on this one. I really want you to study this stuff. This is this century where science and spirituality is going to come together. As a matter of fact, my new book that's coming out next week is going to address this. And the fact is, these are the medicines that have been taught at medical schools to be the most effective medicines ever researched, ever discovered in the history of modern healthcare. So I'm talking about the entire hundreds of years of modern healthcare, these medicines that God, nature, the universe locked into the cells of plants, but once you cook them, they're gone, kaput. And the last one, enzymes. When I was a kid, one of the ways I worked my way through university is I played music and I also had a cleaning service. And I went to municipal buildings and AT&T, and all night long I would be cleaning the buildings. And industrial cleaners way back then, 50 years ago, had enzymes in them. And I really didn't put 2 and 2 together. And as I got older and I started to really do a lot more work and study in this, I said, my God, enzymes are the catalyst of all life. Matter of fact, when a sperm and egg come together, when you were created, it's an enzyme activity to create you. And ironically, when we pass on and stop breathing, it's enzymes and bacteria that break you back down to the soil. And you become life to create and perpetuate further life. It's an incredible system. We just have to relax and observe it. So with that said, the hormones, oxygen, phytochemicals, and enzymes dissolve plaque, stimulate blood circulation, build healthy cells, create stronger hearts. We now know that a raw plant-based diet rebuilds tissue in the heart, unlike a cooked plant-based diet. Doesn't do it. All it does is stop feeding the garbage to you. But I'm not only interested in preventing, I'm interested in reversing. And so why we've seen, let me put it this way. Other than people, the 4% with heart valve problem, if you live on the Hippocrates diet, you will reverse cardiovascular disease if you follow what our doctors, our psychologists tell you, what we teach you here.
It works, folks. It works. And the evidence is back there all the way, even at the beginning of time. We see the food we were designed to eat in Genesis 1:29 is fruits and vegetables. Yeah. The lifespan of man at that point was hundreds of years.
Exactly.
And then they started to eat meat and consume animals and cook the food, and the lifespan went down to 70, 80 years.
The lifespan is just reduced in the last 7 years by 5 years.
Yeah, and it continues to get worse as the food, we're eating more, we're eating at crazy times, crazy amounts, and we're not eating the live foods. And then we wonder why we're sick, and then we go to a doctor who's going to give us drugs to make us worse. Well, that's not what they teach here. And it's been a while since I did the program here, but I'm living the program. But they gave me a big loose leaf at the time. I don't know if it's electronic now or they still give you that loose leaf that you have to walk around with.
Older people like that.
Yes, but I mean, the most important thing, it was that loose leaf. I studied it. It's their information. And Brian has many books out that talks about this, all this stuff. He breaks it down deep in the situation in his books. I just got his latest book. I got your latest book, the 120. Everything we're saying here is the material's out there. And they make it easier for you to do it here. And you definitely want a supervision if you have an advanced illness. But the information is out there. They're not... Nowhere does you can buy a book for $20 and get a lot of this information. You know, it's stop the excuses and do it. I'm here to help you for free. Call me, contact me. I'll guide you. I'll tell you where to go, what to get, and what to do. But this is the number one place I would suggest.
And before we leave this subject, one of the things that I really didn't come to realize until about 35 years ago is that we share this beautiful planet with 8 million known species. Now, they tell us there's probably 4 million others we haven't identified yet. We're probably killing them off through our environmental disaster that we're creating. 100% of every other creature in nature live on a raw diet. Now, let this sink in for a minute. So, do you think God, the universe, made a mistake by putting 8 million or maybe 12 million species on a raw diet and putting us on a cooked diet? Or do you think we made a mistake? How many of you know anthropologists, the real anthropologists, not people reading from the same bad book, tell us now that we were plant-based eaters? Dr. Leakey, look at his work. He looked back at human teeth from thousands of years ago until current. He said, we never ate meat. And by the way, we hardly ever ate grains and nuts and seeds. We did. It was during times of droughts. And he got geologists to sit next to him, and he said, well, how come the indentations for this 10-year period are deeper than before? And they said, well, that was when there were droughts. And so we pretty much lived on fruits, because fruits were wildly different at that point. Sugar counts were negligible at that point, and greens for healing. And yes, at times, nuts, seeds, grains, and beans. Today, we have to include those to live on a polluted planet with the stress load that we have. But we never, ever need to cook a food. We never, ever need to slaughter an animal and drink milk out of the bosom of another species. It's actually perverted when you think about this. But you and I were brought up with this. One of the many books I wrote is called Dairy Deception. And I travel the globe and lecture, and sometimes the auditorium is filled with 1,000 people. And when I put that Dairy Deception presentation up, I don't even know where we found the slide, but a very attractive young woman, dressed well, is underneath the cow sucking from its breast. And no matter where I was in the world, people would gasp, like I was showing a pornographic shot. And as soon as they'd settle down 4 or 5 slides later, I'd have a guy dressed in a suit underneath the cow suck, and the same reaction. And then after that reaction, I would often say, do you realize many of you on the way here to the lecture or going home will go get a carton of milk, but think nothing of it. But when you see this, you put it together. We do a lot of absurd things that we consider normal because we've seen them since the time we were born. humans are not living in a normal way. That's why we're ill. That's why we're sick. That's why we still have war and hatred and racism and sexism. And we talk about God and we talk about spirituality and we don't even know what it is anymore. That's become a business. You know, it's unfortunate, frankly, to me. And it's so easy and so simple. This is what we've been teaching here since 1956, and it works, people.
Absolutely it does. And after being eaten this way for many years, I got caught up into just trying to experiment with things, and somebody said, well, if you do the raw goat milk, it's much better.
Yeah.
And I got convinced after doing this for many years. So I said, all right, I'll give it a try. Yeah. And to my amazement, I didn't have the same reaction that I had with store-bought milk. So I started to get happy and doing a little bit too much. And it was just a matter of a short time later, or I started getting sick again. And I quickly stopped that and went right back doing this. And it just was a great proof and answer that, look, I'm doing this all these years and it works. You don't need to add other things to it. This works. Now, on that, you don't have to be 100%. You don't have to be perfect. There's room for, I don't want to say error, but you don't have to be 100% raw. When we say a raw living foods diet, you know, you want to make sure the majority of the food that's coming in your body is just that, raw living foods. But the things that are not raw living foods, you have to be really careful with. You want to make sure you're eating very wise and you do it in a wise way. And this is things I teach on my website and all the videos, the thousands of videos I make over the years and the videos I do with Brian and others. So that being said, this diet works and I'm here to help you with this, and the Hippocrates Health Institute is here to help you. If you did the program, they continually, do you still do the blood work? You monitor the blood work? And you want to make sure you know how to read that. If you have questions and for some reason you can't get in touch with them, I dedicate my life to helping people with this. And so just contact me. And if you ever come on out here, I live nearby, you might see me walking around. You can't miss me. Look for the guy with the beard. And it works. So thank you, Brian, for all the great things you're doing. There's a lot of topics to discuss, and we'll come back and make more videos. Please post in the comments below if there's a specific illness or some topic you want to discuss, and I'll gather them up and we'll do more videos. All right, everybody, that was Brian Clement from the Hippocrates Health Institute. I am telling you, there's definitely a direct connection between what we're eating and our heart health. And if you want to stay healthy or get better, you must make improvements to your diet. And if you want the best heart possible, eat the best way possible. And from my research and understanding, that would be the Hippocrates Health diet lifestyle. The way they promote food and what they suggest works, folks. And if you want more information about Hippocrates, my email's below. Contact me and I'll get in touch with you and answer all your questions. But I highly recommend everyone go to the Hippocrates Health Institute. And if you or one of your loved ones or somebody else you know have heart issues, definitely you want to send them to a place like this. Thank you for watching, everybody. Stay encouraged. Put your comments and questions below. Have a great day and a great raw life.
Nature's wealth, good for your health. This is the raw life health.